What's up, gamers? I'm the Lights, and today we're going underground, the down low, looking at some slept-on weapons getting snubbed by folks, mainly me, because I know there'll be comments about how everyone's been on these guns since, Red War or whatever, but yeah, let's get it. So this first gun was a big share of the inspiration for this video. I almost thought about making an entire video on just this gun because I feel as though the meta could not possibly suit it better, and people, it seems like, just forgot it existed. Myself included, admittedly. But anyway, I heard y'all like machine guns. Commemoration, corrective measure, circular logic, Thunderlord. It's good stuff. I've also heard most people seem to have a preference for the 450 RPM adaptive frame machine guns over the 360 high impacts and the 900 rapid fires. Myself included, the 450s are my favorite too. And those four machine guns I named, they're all 450s. We've got some pretty good Void 450s you can use, corrective measure, commemoration, lots of people using both of those. There are some good solar 450s, avalanche, unwavering duty, for example. But arc machine guns, a little bit of a rough spot if you don't want to give up your exotic slot to run Thunderlord, am I right? Because, I thought all of the roll possibilities on the legendary arc machine guns were pretty cope. And I also thought that there weren't any arc 450s. Not only is there an ARC 450 machine gun that isn't sunset and is currently obtainable, not only does it get some banger perks like Demo, Adrenaline Junkie, Subsistence, Frenzy, Field Prep, Auto-Loading, One for All, but you can also farm like a dozen rolls of it an hour on the moon from a bounty from the Lectern. A fine memorial. Y'all remember this thing? I basically forgot the Shadowkeep guns existed, and it seems like most of the player base did too, because Destiny Tracker tells me that a fine memorial is one of the least used legendary machine guns in the game, and I know it isn't because of the perks. I mean, look at this. I already mentioned most of them, but there are so many good roll combinations here. If you didn't buy Shadowkeep, then fair enough, that's all well and good, but if you did, and you're one of the majority of people that are apparently using the Swarm over this thing, go to the moon, pick up an Essence of Greed, and you can finish that quest off in like one round of Altars of Sorrow if you're spamming patrols while you're doing it. It goes even faster if you're in a fire team. That'll net you what is, in my opinion, by far and away the best legendary arc machine gun in the game. I farmed out about a dozen this week when I learned it existed, and right now I'm using a Subsistence Wellspring roll, which is great, but I don't even know what I want. There's just so many good combos here. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to get in on this. Next up, have you all seen Graviton Lance lately? And I don't mean in Crucible because, well, we've all seen that. No, I mean this. Dude, this gun's perk kind of goes hard. Graviton Lance recently got a small rework, changing it to more closely mirror the 2-burst mode on Revision 0. So it's now just a 300 RPM 2-burst pulse rifle. That, combined with its pretty gnarly stat package, has had it really tearing up Crucible lately, like we talked about. And like you all know, I'm sure. So now me, though, I'm definitely more of a PvE player, so I wanted to see if there was anything here, and holy cow, dude, this thing's a little crazy. Let's recall back to the launch of Witch Queen, when all exotic primaries received a 40% damage buff against red bars. In the middle of last season, Pulse Rifles got a 20% damage buff as well. So this thing had a ways to go, to be fair, but I mean, that's a lot of damage buffs this thing has gotten, at least since the last time I used it. This gun's exotic perk, Black Hole, states that the second shot in the burst has no damage fall off, which is really nice. But its other perk, Cosmology, is really where the sauce is coming from in PvE. Kills with this weapon make enemies pop, which deals damage, and then creates little Void Seekers that are basically exactly like scatter grenade projectiles, and these effects can chain off of themselves, which is just ridiculously satisfying to watch. The catalyst for this gun gives it Vorpal and Turnabout on top of this as well. And here's a take I bet you haven't heard. Turnabout is low-key nice when it's just free like this. I said it. It's fine. We don't have pulses on the artifact currently, but we often do, and Vorpal is also a really nice freebie for when that's the case, for that extra 20% damage to champions. Graviton is also, of course, Void. So we have volatile rounds going crazy on some of the Void builds, Falcon's Night Stalker especially, and this gun goes inexplicably hard with that setup. That's been my favorite way to run it. I will say, though, even with all the damage buffs, I admit, it still does kind of feel like it hits like a wet noodle. But if you just tough it out for one kill, this thing just chain reaction nukes the entire room. I also know a lot of folks not really running primaries at all that often these days because of how ridiculous double special is currently. I'm of the opinion that there are a few primaries in this game that are literally good enough that they're just better than a lot of special weapons and the content they're suited to. Stuff like Trinity Ghoul and low-end stuff, Risk Runner when there's arc damage, Osteostriga everywhere. And Graviton Lance, man, shoot, look at this. This might be in that kind of conversation. No? I mean, that's fine. I think Graviton Lance is pretty good. Give it a try. Or don't. It's your life. Do what you want. Prometheus Lens. This thing's PvE usage rates are apparently all the way down there with guns like Crimson and Hardlight. And I mean, hey, if those guns are your jam, then more power to you. But I know a lot of people definitely swear by this gun already. In fact, I hear the fan club meets on Tuesdays. But I was sleeping on it for sure. And yeah, this thing goes hard. It's really good. That double special meta I was talking about, I know spawned a whole lot of trace rifle stands, and all the exotic traces are pretty bonkers, really. But at least in my circles and the way my YouTube recommendations are curated, I feel like I see Prometheus Lens talked about the least. It did get a little bit of press when it got Incandescent added to its catalyst, which is pretty dope, and goes great with the fact that it just scorches on hit by default. This gun also basically has a souped up version of the perk Subsistence on it from its other perk Flame Refraction. This works incredibly well with the huge base mag size of Prometheus and really just traces in general. The funny thing about all this is my current, or well, I guess I should say previous go-to solar trace rifle was the retraced path from Dares with Subsistence Incandescent, which is basically just a watered down Prometheus lens with that roll. It's not taking up my exotic slot, but I mean, not a lot of people running exotic heavies nowadays anyway, so the slot's free pretty often right now, at least for me. Next, I want to talk about more a perk that I think is slept on rather than a gun. So I guess it's actually a bunch of guns then. Specifically, fusion rifles that get the perk Reservoir Burst. This perk is fantastic. But even though I think it gets talked about a fair bit, I don't really see it used nearly as much as I should. Reservoir Burst is active for the first shot of your fusion rifle's magazine and gives you 25% bonus damage for that shot and causes enemies you kill with the shot to explode. And this isn't your grandma's explosion either. This isn't Dragonfly and nothing like that. The explosion does a lot of damage. And now let's go back to the condition for this perk. First shot in the magazine. I'm sure a lot of you are probably aware, but since there are a bunch of perks that can overflow your magazine, like Envious Assassin, Reconstruction, or, Overflow, you can have several consecutive shots of Reservoir Burst until you get down to what would have been the first shot in your base magazine. So like if you have a gun with a 7-round magazine and you overflow it to 14, that is 8 Reservoir Burst shots in a row that you could do. Or you could just use a perk like Compulsive Reloader or Auto-Loading Holster to just make reloading after one shot really fast, or just work into your loop very well. There's about a half dozen fusions in the game that can do something like this with Reservoir Burst. You have Glacioclasm with Subsistence or Slide Shot to keep you at the top of the mag. Loaded Question can do it with Overflow, Auto-Loading, or Envious. Midas Reckoning can do it with just its origin trait. Null Composure has Feeding Frenzy, Plug 1 has Compulsive Reloader, Royal Executioner has Envious, and Snorri has Compulsive Reloader. I'd imagine the reason I don't see people using these more is because Wave Frames clear adds in a more ammo efficient manner and a little bit quicker, since you need to charge a fusion, whereas you just shoot the wave frame. But fusions are much better at kind of flexing into the role of also taking down beefier targets. You can use them for boss damage quite a bit more effectively than wave frames. So I don't know. I think they probably deserve a little more attention. Admittedly, I'm a bit of a Reservoir Burst stan myself, so maybe that's just my own bias talking, but I think it's really good. I've been using the Plug 1 lately on Arc Warlock with all the Arc mods helping it out, and this thing goes really, really hard. So hopefully y'all can get your hands on some of these guns. They're ripping it up right now. But that's going to do it from me for today. Be sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe for more Destiny content like this. Let's talk about these guns in the comments down below. Let me know what guns you think are slept on. If there's anything that I missed, you think I'm snubbing, let's hear about it. But that's going to do it for today. Deuces.